To me, they just have to beat Fnatic, basically. If they do that, they're certainly through. Come on.
Yeah, that it should be fine for them. Also, their game versus XL that they played, I feel like that was the most XL draft they could ever get, because they literally had the tank top for Otohomne. Yes. They have the Maokai for Xerxes. Yep. So Xerxes is able to just, he doesn't have any pressure to like make plays, which is what Xerxes sucks at pretty much right now. And then they have the Soraka versus Lulu. Of course you'd love to play Soraka into Hylissang Lulu. Hylissang is going to play Lulu like an engage support. Like you'll get the most value out of Soraka that you'll ever get. So I thought that their draft into XL, I mean, I think XL just completely outdrafted them, especially considering what XL is good at. I don't even know if it's what XL is good at, what XL is capable of, like what they're able to do, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a bad loss. Also, one thing I'll say about that game was that was probably the first game that Patrick actually looked decent the whole year up until this point. This was the first time where you actually looked at it and you're like, oh shit, Patrick's like, he's
they had a pretty nice sick outplay when they came to like the mid lane or whatever. He had some good moves.
The nice kill on Elyoya. Also, back to the Mad Lions thing, I think Elyoya is really struggling, and when Elyoya struggles, this team has no shot. Like he's the guy that's supposed to be consistent, that's supposed to be always good. If he's not having,
he's the real best player on that team. Let's be real.
Yeah, he's the person that's supposed to be special, and he's having some really awful games. I mean, he pretty much solo through the last game of the week versus Heretics. Like it was, I don't know what he was doing in this game. So, I mean, if he turns it around and just plays okay, I'd be pretty confident in them just making it on.
By the way, let's just do the XL topic and see if we've brought it up already. Like, the problem is, like I say, that should be, on paper, one of the best wins this XL team's had. Like, I should be so buoyed up by that and believing now when they bring in Abadagi, it's going to be awesome. Like, I'm not really. Like, that was kind of a lackluster fucking game, quite frankly. It was, like I said, XL didn't position well themselves. It didn't, like, necessarily seem like they always made, like, the right plays. They did some weird, like, uncoordinated moves. It didn't make a lot of sense. And then you add in, like, and by the way, this is a game where they even uncharacteristically, unlike XL, like, I actually thought that early roam that, like, Limit did that got them that kill in mid lane when they, like, reversed the gank, that would never happen normally for XL. That's, like, a massive boon. You got basically a few advantages early, and even then it still was, like, a drag-out fucking game. So it's like, I don't know, mate. The problem is everyone's going to get hyped about this Abadagi move. Here's the problem I have with that. Why are people acting like this is Abadagi coming out of a time machine from when he was in Schalke? Like, Abadagi looked pretty... If you didn't watch LCS, that last split he played in 100 Thieves was bad, guys. It was fucking bad. And remember, that was when... the mid lane talent in LCS at the time was pretty weak. Like, it was actually when, like, Bjergsen wasn't even playing well, but he was, like, top 3 mid still, and fucking Takui was the other one. Like, that was a bad meta of mid laners, and he still was one of the worst. Like, for me, he's one of the reasons 100 Thieves couldn't win another title, mate. Like, I get why people want to change him for Vethio, because Vethio's have massive problems. It doesn't look like he's good anyway. But if people are super hyped that it's going to make XL go up, I don't think it is, mate. Like, I think if they make it to groups, and I think they might actually even, they're also a team that has a chance not to make it. If they make it to groups, I think they're going to be one of the worst teams too.
Yeah, definitely they're going to be one of the worst teams. You saw all the bad parts of XL in that final game that they played. My God, that one was tough terrible to watch. They just did nothing and lost. They actually did nothing and lost. The joke is that I had a bet, which was that they would win. I gave them a 6.5 kill handicap, right? So
okay.
Yeah, I gave them a 6.5 kill handicap. They didn't get 1 kill and they actually hit. And the bet actually hit, even though they didn't get 1 kill.
So stupid.
because they actually do nothing to that degree where they just let their Nexus die before they've even had like the whole team die once. Like, it was actually just so insane that game actually played out the way it did. And that's exactly what you see from XL. This is a team that are so passive, and just the way they play the game is not even good. At least when you had those old boring teams, like you had Origin or you had like old Splice, you had those copy teams, you'd at least feel like they had pretty good macro. They were just kind of like pussies about how they played the game. XL just has bad macro. Like, they just do the wrong things. That's the worst part as well.
It's not even like they can do that bullshit if we're just scaling. You wouldn't know what to do if you had scaling, mate. You'd be done. As you've seen, they can't win a late game either. Like, they've got no strengths anywhere in the game against anyone good.
Yeah, no, it's fucking crazy to just watch the way they played. I mean, that situation that they gave up a full bot lane turret to Draven, and then they lost the 3v2 topside and didn't even get Herald. Like, I wanted to just ask Xerxes, like, what are you thinking in this game? What are you thinking in this game when you're giving the enemy team a Draven, right? and then you're just gonna put your bot lane down 1k gold. You're just gonna give a full turret to contest Herald instead of just covering the bot dive. It makes no sense. Like, everyone knows how Draven is to play against. If you give Draven like a cash in, if you give him a big lead, champion is super impressive. But it's like he gave that lead to the Draven by trying to do Herald without even like cashing him in. So there was just a huge issue with how they decided to play that game out. And yeah, it just looked completely unwinnable. So
by the way, as an aside, can we do a sidebar? Because here's the sidebar I want to do. Think of like last split as well, because they did it all the time then. Dom, we need to have some sort of intervention with these LEC coaches. Dude, especially in BO1s, why are you giving Dravens to the really good ADCs who play Draven? Am I missing something? It's a BO1. That's probably the ultimate champion that can get a fucking a crazy win off. That, as you say, if you just fuck. The worst part about Draven, it's like the old Zeri or fucking the Yuumi, etc. It's like if you just fuck up early, the whole game feels like 10 times harder. Like you just feel like you can never get back in.
Yeah, I mean the worst part is. I mean, the worst part is this.
I would give up so many more power picks instead of that against the... Like, if you're against Hansama, Execute... These are the guys you don't give the Draven to. Why would you do it if you're a bad team? Why would you give them the Draven, mate? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, all the games are kind of blending together at some point. But here's the thing to remember. XL has done it twice. They're the team that's done it twice. So out of, like, the 3 really egregious Draven giveaways...
Oh, it was them before as well, right.
Yeah, they were the ones that gave it to Hansama. And... I've heard from a little birdie that the reason that they did it is because they thought, oh, we can just pick it. They won't first pick it.
Oh my God, right.
But yeah, Hans might just not pick Draven because last time, like, because they played it earlier that week, and Hans didn't first pick it in that game. I think they got it on like 2-3 or something. So they're like, oh, we can actually get it here instead. And then they just first pick it. They're like, oh, well, shit, we're actually fucked. And then
Classic
they did
blunder.
it again this week.
Classic draft blunder.
Yeah, I mean, they just have this idea that they can just get through it. I mean, the way that Draven is getting through, it's so strange. So you have that from XL where they're like, I don't know if Hans will first pick it. I don't like. Maybe he just doesn't want to win this game, so like he'll want to play against it. It's just
I like the way you always, dude. It's the way you always do it on Twitter. Because on Twitter, everyone sounds like more petty and pissy and shitty, but that's like our strength into it, so we lean into it, right? I just like the way you did that tweet where it's like, I can't remember when you did it. It might be at the beginning of the week. It's that tweet you did where it's like, let's just give Hansama like Draven one more time just to check if he's actually good on it or not.
Yeah,
bro, we've been watching it for years, Smurf. Like the joke is they must just only be looking up the Team Liquid VODs because otherwise it's inexplicable. Like, hey, look, if you watched him in Team Liquid, you would think he didn't know how to play the champion.
He wasn't even getting Draven bans.
If you watch him in any other team he ever played in, including last split, he is so broken on that one champion. It's nuts, mate. It's ridiculous. Like, I've never seen someone who was a specialist on a champion just get it given this many times. It's nuts. It's so nuts.
I mean, it's even deeper than that, right? Because it's not just that Hans is a Draven specialist. It's that's G2's whole identity. It was like smashing bot, playing through bot, diving bot, leave Broken Blade on a fucking island. Like, hopefully he does well. He probably won't, but like he'll be good in team fights. It doesn't matter. Their whole identity is like they are a Draven team. Even when they play other champions, they're just trying to pick other things that can do the shit that Draven can do. They're picking Kalista, they're picking Samira. Just why would we ever be giving G2 Draven? And then they do the same thing to SK. They do the same thing to SK. They lose the same way. They're not even good at playing into Draven. They don't even have a game plan against Draven. Their game plan against Draven is like, okay, but if we don't cash him, let's just give him all the gold that he would have got from the cash in, but we just won't cash him in. We'll never fight him, so he'll never actually get the cash in, and then we win somehow. It's like, dude, guys, it's still an 80 carry. Like, giving it free gold is probably not the right move. So, man, I just like XL, the way that they play games. They come off a really good draft for them, and I thought, nice, let's run back this same type of style. If Maokai is now coming back into the meta as a Moonstone redemption chip, that sounds perfect for Xerxes. He was always the Ivern player, right? This is just a different tree. It's the same type of shit. You're playing the same fucking game, right? Like it's just a different version of Ivern. I would love to see him lean into that, play these champions that are useful, that have utility, so that he doesn't actually have to gank. He doesn't need to get leads, and make the game like more slow paced, more of their style. They made the game the worst for them possible by giving over Draven. They're the worst team to actually play into this because they're the team that will roll over and die. So, man, like, watching XL play, it's so frustrating because they'll have one good draft and you'll think, oh, this team actually is pretty good. Okay, they have like a new coach. Like, he seems pretty smart. From like I've seen him speak about the game multiple times. He seems pretty smart. Okay, maybe he's helping them out with some things. And then the next game, they'll just have like the most idiotic draft of all time. And you're like, yeah, maybe it's just fucking doomed for this team. And I don't even know if that's a coach problem. Could be just the players. You know, a lot of players have egos. Oh, I can play into Draven. Like, I mean, I I played with Piglet. I know about giving Draven, playing like Vayne into it and shit. I know how that shit works, but at this point, I just don't see why they're not just 1, 2, 3 banning it. I mean, they're going to be playing against other people that have the ability to pick Draven in this next week. I want to see it banned. I want to see it banned versus the people that actually play it. So yeah, I mean, I guess the last thing to talk about is probably the video topic, because he's not on the team anymore.
By the way, along those lines, I'll tell you something. This is one of the areas where, you know, all the people who say that constant refrain, Dom, where they say, like, the problem with you, Dom, and LS is you are just so negative about LCS teams, right? Here's the obvious 2 questions I have. 1, why are you watching and complaining? I'll tell you why, because their content's straight fire, and none of the people who suck the dick of everyone in LCS do great content that you want to watch instead. So you basically complain about something you obviously like. And 2, is it accurate or not? Notice they never say that part, Tom. They don't say you say any shit and you're wrong. No, their point is you're supposed to just lie to them. Because here's the problem. I'm going to make this point specifically with I'm going to tie it back into Vethio now. Because I also watch, I don't watch like you every game. I obviously don't like watch the fucking shit teams. I just watch the big teams, either my favorite teams, JDG, Weibo, etc., or I watch the big marquee matchups in LPL and LCK. And dude, the whiplash of watching like Knights Syndra and then coming to LEC and watching Vethio, who remember, in the last year, was one of the best players in the whole LEC. On Syndra, the champion he plays, dude, it's like literally like the little kids pool versus like an Olympic swimmer. It's mental. The difference is insane. If you don't know, by the way, if you don't watch LPL, guys, Knights Syndra, you don't even notice it has no mobility. He plays it like a fucking assassin. It's like how a rookie used to play Orianna back in the day, where his is like 10 times more cracked than anyone. And then he comes to LEC. Vethio's supposed to be this mega talent. Dude, his is just pedestrian. Like you said, that was the game they did nothing, by the way. That was the game where everyone did nothing. Like, the whiplash is too crazy. How could I not comment on it? I'd be a moron if I didn't. Like, how can I reset the filters and go, this is fine? Like, it isn't fine. It ain't fine at all.
Yeah, it's... I think the one thing that triggers me is like the ways that people try to make you a hypocrite, because they'll be like, oh, like, why are you criticizing this draft? They play those same champions in like the Asian leagues, but it's about when you pick obviously, if the enemy team has a comp that's susceptible to engage, picking full engage is fine. But there's like times where like 100 Thieves will just be blinding full engage. Like, they'll just be going down a checklist of like, this is what Ellis said on FaceCheck, and I agree with him completely. It's like they're just going off a tier list. It's like they're going off a tier list and they're like, S tier champions. Okay, can we get as many S tier champions as possible? Okay, that's our team comp. That's how they end up drafting. And a lot of times other teams should just beat it. I see the same like problem a lot of the times in LEC. I mean, I think that LEC, you definitely have teams that are better at playing different team comp identities, but some of like the worst teams like XL, you can tell that like even if they draft a perfect team comp into the enemy team, if it's not their identity, if they have like an engage comp versus a team that is susceptible to engage like a poke comp, I just don't believe that they'll be able to pull the trigger and actually like win the game. So yeah, it's been a quite a wild ride so far.
You know what's wild, Dom, is to just draw in an old school topic if people remember. And I'll even do I'll give the olive branch of peace for a moment, because I always credit this. You know, the weird thing about Doublelift is because Doublelift, like, let's be real, especially on talk shows or in interviews, he just answers very quickly, right? Because he's got that sort of like ADD, like can't keep his focus. So what he does is he just answers off the top of his head. Now, the downside of that is he's not a super smart guy. So oftentimes he says things he maybe even doesn't mean or not that interesting. But every now and then it means, and this is the key, by the way, if you're just someone who speaks without filtering yourself, every now and then you will also say something that's very lucid and poignant, maybe without even meaning it. And I remember, I always give him credit that way back, we're talking for real. I did this interview at Season 3 Worlds, Dom, where his team hadn't made it, CLG, and they'd had all those problems. And I did an interview with him, right? And here's what's funny. He himself in that interview admitted something I've always given him credit for, which is he was one of the first people in the West I saw accurately make the read, because this is Season 3, remember? People at the time, because Korea was the absolute best, everyone was just trying to copy Korean style, picks, comps. And what he said was, seeing Elite Europe do way better than everyone thought, where like Fnatic was in semis and even the Gambit with fucking Voidal was in quarters. He said what that actually showed me was that at that point in time in League of Legends, it was more like play to your style rather than whatever the best theoretical style was. Dude, I think to this day, that still should be the identity for LEC specifically. Because what you just said, I agree with completely. You can even give them the comp that the Asian team would do something specific with. But if it is against the sort of character and tendencies of your team in in the LEC. They won't be able to do it anyway. Like, if anything, Misfits Coach Carter wasn't a genius. He just figured out this is the only thing my team can do well, and he made them do it, and it made them win a bunch of games. Same thing with a bunch of teams. We called it Band-Aids. It's actually just the only drafts that make sense for your identity at this point in the meta, you know.
And that's one of the biggest strengths that I think G2 has. One of the reasons why I think that they can actually take games off Asian teams is because they have an identity that is different than what Asian teams play. And if you go through drafts, I mean, people that watch LCK know how much Kadrill and LS were always mauling it. They're like, first pick Vi, Lucian Nami, Zeri Lulu, Sejuani or Wukong. That was like every fucking draft at LCK. That is one of the things that's exploitable because you know what's coming. You know what they're going to fucking draft. So you can give them champions that are going to be guaranteed pick and counter them. And one of the things that I liked about G2 last split is that they were doing things that other teams weren't doing. They had a huge identity where it was a ton of flex picks, early aggression, things that can move around the map really well. So they were heavily investing in like Kled. They were playing it mid, top. They would have like Jarvan that they would flex between 4 different positions. Yike would be playing champions like Lilia that would be really good into a lot of the like bruiser meta junglers. So things like Wukong, the teams were playing a lot of, not great into Lilia, right? So you had a good identity. And I think one of the things that G2's been doing differently this split, which might be them just trying to branch out their styles, is it doesn't feel like they're playing those types of drafts anymore, where they're really trying to like punish people and shit on them early. They're playing things like Vitalia now, where Vitalia is fine. It's a really good combo if enemy team has like dashes and things like that. But the timers of Vitalia are way different. Like Vitalia, you pretty much want to be like making a play with Vi ult. Vi doesn't, and then like, okay, you kill the guy, whatever. Then Vi doesn't have ult. You go back, you stabilize the game, you wait for the next Vi ult, you force another objective on the Vi ult. And I just feel like that doesn't really suit what G2's biggest strengths are, which is the fact that they know how to snowball a game. And they are willing to like fight and hit timers that other people aren't ready for. If you look at top LCK teams, even teams like, for example, I watched KT versus Sandbox today. Outside of T1 in the LCK, most of the teams are relatively slower than what G2 would play. And I feel like that could be a major advantage for G2, is the fact that they're willing to just dive bot over and over again. And if other teams aren't used to perfectly covering them, or they don't exactly know how the lane matchups go, they're like, what the fuck is that? Like, what? This is a Graga support with a Kalista. Like, I mean, what levels do we win at? When can they crash the wave? When is the dive coming? What camps are the jungler going to do? Does G2 split the map early? I feel like there was all these things that made G2 special, and I hope that they're not losing that with some of the new drafts that they're going with in spring.
No, I'm with you. I actually do think that if you're a Western fan, the best case scenario, if you want to see an awesome BO1 at like MSI, is that you get G2 against a bunch of these Asian teams. They can do it. If they just get the early lead with the right lane leads, they can accelerate the game. That's one of the best teams ever, probably the West at accelerating, right? Like the amount of times I've seen them like use a good lead and just continuously push it through and win, actually like top LPL teams are famous for doing. So yeah, I'm with you. Like that is a rare edge stylistically. You normally never get that. Yeah. Like, if you think historically, compared to last year, dude, I like Rogue, but they have a very one-dimensional playing style, and it's not at all like that. It's more like withstand, like, the other team, and then hope you win a close team fight. Yeah, exactly. Like, you have
I would say it's low
the problem with the Rogue angle is, one, you have a way less chance because you're just against better players in the lanes, and then two, it's like I always say, you walk in a tightrope. It either looks awesome and you win all those team fights narrowly, or you don't. In this style, the best way to win in League of Legends always was just get ahead early. It's just the problem in the past was we didn't have the players for it. Like, you'd always have some bomb in the top lane from Europe or some like average ADC from Europe. You know what I mean? Like, you never had the raw strength to get ahead most of the times, especially against like LPL, etc. Like, it was never going to happen usually unless they ended the whole fucking game.
Yeah, this is one of the times where you feel more hope than you did in like in the previous 2 years, because the players like 1-to-1 match up way better, and then the style matches up really well into a lot of the teams you can see going. Obviously, I think T1 is like the massive favorite right now. Yeah. And then you have like teams like JDG that I think are also pretty hard for G2, but like the second seed from LPL, the second seed from LCK, those teams are pretty slow, assuming that it's like EDG or LNG. EDG and LNG, they might as well just be Korean teams with the way that they play.
They're LCK teams, yes.
Yeah, they might as well just be LCK teams, right? Same way, like, I mean, T1 is plays more like an LPL team than any LCK team that we've seen like almost ever, right? But some of these other teams, Genji, KT, if you get into a Dragonfight, if you're trying to play Vitalia, like, I know G2, they're pretty good. If they could play Vitalia and probably beat the shit out of an NA team, I just don't think you want to like get into these like standoff Dragonfights versus Genji, KT, EDG, LNG. Like, that's what I'm scared of. I feel like they need to really just commit on their style. which is a high risk, right? It's higher ceiling, lower floor.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.